very much, Madam Speaker, and it's great to be back after some time with family and in our own ridings, and it's wonderful to see everybody. So our Canadian identity is rooted in our shared values and our deep connection to this country. And with our Canadian citizenship, we are granted rights and responsibilities. Our Canadian citizenship guarantees fundamental freedoms like conscience and expression. It ensures democratic rights, mobility rights, and legal protections. But citizenship is not just about the rights that we inherit. It is also about the responsibilities we accept, respecting the laws of this land, contributing to our communities, and upholding the values that make Canada strong and free. As members of Parliament, it is our duty to strengthen and uphold the value of Canadian citizenship, to ensure it remains a privilege earned through a genuine connection to this country, which in turn fosters a lasting commitment to Canada. Unfortunately, Bill C-3 in its current form does not safeguard or strengthen the value of Canadian citizenship. In fact, by creating an endless chain of citizenship passed down without meaningful connection, it risks devaluing what it means to be Canadian. And to be clear, granting Canadian citizenship to adopted children of Canadian citizens born abroad is a positive step. It ensures that adopted children are treated equal to biological children, as they should be. That is a principle that I have been quite vocal on, and colleagues in this House who served in the previous Parliament will recall that I put forward a bill to ensure equal access to EI parental leave for adoptive and intended parents. It is an inequity that unfortunately remains unresolved as this government continues to drag its feet on the issue. Likewise, restoring citizenship to lost Canadians is a necessary correction. These are individuals with deep, undeniable connections to this country, many of whom were raised in Canada. They went to school here, worked here, paid taxes here, and built lives here. But because they have failed to apply to retain their citizenship before the age of 28, their citizenship was stripped away. In many cases, they did not even know it happened, as the requirement was never properly communicated. While the previous Conservative government repealed that rule in 2009, a small group born between February 15, 1977 and April 16, 1981 were left behind. By any reasonable measure, these individuals are Canadians, and this should be corrected. A previous Conservative bill from the other place sought to do exactly that, a targeted, measured solution to restore citizenship to lost Canadians. But rather than pass that bill, the Liberal government delayed it. They then introduced a flawed and far broader bill, C-71, which now has been recycled and presented as Bill C-3 in this Parliament. Bill C-3 in its current form reopens the door to Canadians of convenience. It creates a pathway for unlimited, multi-generational citizenship to individuals with no meaningful connection to Canada. It does that by removing the first-generation limit and replacing it with an incredibly weak, substantial connection test. The first-generation limit was a safeguard that was introduced by the previous Conservative government. It ensured that citizenship could not be endlessly passed down to generations born and living outside of Canada with no real ties here to the country. This policy was not introduced without reason. It followed the 2006 Lebanon crisis, when thousands of people with little or no connection to Canada suddenly claimed citizenship to be evacuated. That effort cost taxpayers $94 million, not including other benefits accessed after. Most of the evacuated returned to Lebanon shortly after. They had no lasting ties to Canada. That incident raised serious concerns and legitimate questions about the integrity of our citizenship and what responsibilities the Government of Canada should uphold. The first-generation limit was a reasonable and necessary measure to address the issue of Canadians of convenience. It ensured that those inheriting Canadian citizenship have close ties to Canada that are not far removed. It helps prevent people from claiming the rights and the privileges of citizenship without accepting its responsibilities. Significant ties to Canada can show a strong connection to our country. But the bill's requirement of just 1,095 non-consecutive days in Canada before the child's birth weakens the guarantee of a strong connection. Under this change, families can live outside Canada for generations and still pass on citizenship as long as the parent has spent about 3 years in Canada at some point. This so-called substantial connection is not substantial at all. It also does not require a criminal background check for those claiming citizenship, opening the door for dangerous individuals to gain it automatically. This policy change devalues the significance of Canadian citizenship. And let's not ignore the fact that this bill creates a two-tier immigration system. On one side, there will be foreign-born individuals who have never lived in Canada, many of whom may have no intention on living in Canada or contributing to our country. Yet they could gain citizenship simply because a parent spent a few months here and there in Canada years ago. On the other side, hard-working newcomers who actually live and work in Canada face strict requirements. They must follow timelines, meet residency rules, pass language and knowledge tests. They certainly must pass the security assessment, which we all know can be quite a lengthy process, and they must prove their commitment to Canadian society before they can become citizens. This proposed policy change is unfair. This is chain migration without merit, and it is a two-tier immigration system. One, where those who have no attachment to Canada gain the same rights as those who worked hard to earn their citizenship. This undermines the value of citizenship and the efforts of genuine immigrants. Another major concern is that we have no clear idea how many people would become eligible under this policy change. A massive influx of new citizens would put significant strain on government resources and come at a cost to Canadian taxpayers. The government has not done a clear cost analysis on this policy. What impact will this have on our already strained social services? Canadians are rightly frustrated that public services like healthcare, pensions, and housing could be further stretched by a surge of new citizens living abroad who have never contributed to our country. Not to mention the extra workload that this will create for government departments processing citizenship applications. This will once again disadvantage those applying to Canada who have shown a genuine and legitimate connection to this country. Again, Madam Speaker, Canadian citizenship must be fair, secure, and meaningful. It should be earned through genuine connection, responsibility, and respect for our country. Becoming a Canadian citizen means more than just receiving rights and privileges. It requires a deep commitment to Canada's future and the responsibilities that come with citizenship. As parliamentarians, we must oppose policies that cheapen the value of our citizenship. We must stand firm for integrity, security, and a responsible immigration policies. While this bill includes some important elements like restoring citizenship to lost Canadians and ensuring equal treatment for adopted children, it is not a measured nor targeted policy. Instead, it opens the door wide open for our citizenship to be abused as a citizenship of convenience. It is reckless. The lack of a required security screening is deeply concerning. The potential cost to taxpayers is significant, and the added strain on an already overstretched government resources and public programs is alarming. This bill requires significant amendments. Yet it's hard to believe that that will happen, given this government has failed to make these necessary changes before reintroducing it to this Parliament. The integrity of our Canadian citizenship and our national identity cannot be taken lightly. As elected members of this House, it's our responsibility to uphold and strengthen what it means to be a Canadian citizen. Thank you.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Deputy Leader of the House. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's very nice to see you back in the House, and I welcome my colleagues as well. I also just want to take this opportunity to ask my colleague, based off of her comments, she did talk about the measures that were adopted in 2009. Many of these measures were deemed unconstitutional by the Ontario Court of Justice. So this is not the first time this bill has come to this House. It has come back for reasons that there had to be some changes made to the bill. We have made those changes. They supported those changes. Why are they misleading Canadians, once again, Madam Speaker, on what we're actually talking about? We told lost Canadians, they told lost Canadians in the last session that they will pass this bill. So why are they arguing this to be something that it's really not?
The Honourable Member for Battlefords Lloydminster.
Battlefords Lloydminster Meadow Lake, Madam Speaker. I have a name change. Thank you for that question. So what I did mention was that this bill had been reintroduced. Liberals had rejected the amendments that were proposed by Conservatives in the previous Parliament. This bill was reintroduced by the Liberals unchanged without taking any of those amendments into consideration. And I would say, just given the very first question that opened this Parliament by the member for Winnipeg North, who talked about working collaboratively, this would be a great example of, if this happens to go to committee, that amendments are taken seriously, that they are debated, and that they are voted on to strengthen this bill. Thank you.
Member for Caribou Prince George.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's great to see you in the chair. It's great to be back, Madam Speaker. It's always interesting. You know, the Liberals break something and they blame everyone else for the accident and breaking it. Madam Speaker, to our honourable colleague, I want to thank her for her thoughtful presentation and intervention today. A question for her, maybe two questions I have. Does the government have any idea how many people will be automatically granted citizenship if the legislation is passed? And do they have any, have they put forth any suggestions or details regarding the information that will, and the evidence that will be required to prove the 1,095 days cumulative physical presence in Canada? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Battlefords Lloydminster Meadow Lake.
Yeah, it's a lot of syllables. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you to my colleague for that question. So, as I mentioned in my remarks, there's been no cost analysis. They do not know the scope, so we don't know how much this is going to cost the government, aka the Canadian taxpayers. We also don't have the information on the 1095 non-consecutive, so 1,095 non-consecutive days is what is being proposed. This is the opportunity where we can provide amendments to make sure that we can strengthen the bill if we believe, which I argued, that we need to have a deep, meaningful connection to Canada.
Questions and comments, the Honourable Member for La Pointe-à-L'Île. I'd like to congratulate my colleague for her speech. Earlier, another one of her colleagues talked about language issues, and I'd like to know that given that Quebec is a nation, we've already brought forward a bill to obtain citizenship in Quebec so we can require knowledge of French. I'd like to know what my colleague thinks of that.
For Battlefords Lloydminster Meadow Lake.
Merci pour la...
I'd like to thank my colleague for his question.
Yes, thank you for that question. So as I spoke in my remarks, I believe that this is going to create a two-tier immigration system. I think that we should have an even playing field. If there are language requirements that are required during or through other streams of immigration, that should also be applied. So absolutely.
The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Thérèse de Blainville, sorry. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Welcome, everyone, back. And I'm really happy to hear our Bloc colleagues to talk about identity, Canadian identity and citizenship, and to also hear my Conservative colleagues talk about the importance of our Canadian values. So with this in mind, I'd like to strengthen the fact that, yes, Canada has to work hard. We need a safe environment, and we also need equality, so that solidarity, both for our both official languages. Well, can we really count on the Conservatives to underscore this, and also solidarity here in this House?
Ford's Lloydminster Meadow Lake, a very brief answer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for that question. On the spirit of collaboration, absolutely. I would expect that when amendments, if this passes to committee, be brought forward, they would be debated thoroughly and voted in a nonpartisan manner. Absolutely.
Please